Hi everyone. Today in the video, I'm going to talk about respiratory system. I'm going to cover the following topics. That is, I'll be talking about what is respiration, what are the types of cellular respiration, what is the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and what is the structure of respiratory system, what is meant by breathing mechanism, and what are the functions of respiratory system. Now, first of all, what is meant by respiration? Respiration is a process in which cells of the body release energy from glucose. It is called as respiration. There are two types of respiration. One is internal respiration and one is external respiration. Internal respiration is exchange of gases between the cells and blood and tissues. And external respiration is, it involves exchange of gases, that is oxygen is going in and carbon dioxide is coming out. This is called external respiration. Now coming to cellular respiration. So what happens is, respiration is not just taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Respiration is a process where, suppose here, this is glucose, which is coming from the food which we eat, and the energy which is released from the glucose. This process is also called as respiration. So the cells need oxygen to break down glucose and release energy. I will give you an example. So imagine you are running on a treadmill. So the energy required for running on the treadmill is given from the glucose that is coming from our food which we have eaten. So when you run very fast or when you do a heavy workout, you experience cramps and pain in the muscle. Why? Because what happens in that scenario is, in a case of a heavy workout, the energy is completely utilized. Now there is no more energy. So the body needs energy, the brain needs oxygen to give the energy. What happens is, in that situation, there is a lot of lactic acid that is produced in absence of oxygen in the muscle, which leads to cramps or pain. So aerobic respiration is in the presence of oxygen where energy is released, is called as aerobic respiration. And what happens in anaerobic respiration or fermentation? This is the reaction for anaerobic respiration. The glucose in the absence of oxygen gives ethanol and carbon dioxide. This ethanol is nothing but, it is also safely used for human consumption. Now, this can be seen in yeast. Yeast is also used in making of bread. Like when you add to the flour yeast and sugar, what happens is the dough rises in size. You can see here. This is happening because of carbon dioxide release. And whatever these pores you can see, these are because of carbon dioxide, where it is leaving behind air spaces where you can feel the fluffiness of the bread. Now coming to breathing mechanism. Breathing mechanism of the lungs is controlled by the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles. The diaphragm, this is a membrane which is separating the thoracic chambers from the abdominal cavity. When the diaphragm moves down, the lungs expand completely. So here, the diaphragm is moving down, the lungs completely expand. So what happens is, when it expands, the air is inhaled, air moves in. And when the diaphragm moves up, the lungs contract and the air is exhaled. So again, let me tell you, this mechanism is done by the lungs and it is controlled by the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. Now coming to functional anatomy of human respiratory tract. So again, let me repeat what is respiration. It is a process here in which oxygen is taken in and carbon dioxide is given out. The first breath takes place only after birth. So what happens in case of fetus is, the exchange of gases is happening through placenta. Now coming to the phases of respiration. it is of two types. One is inspiration and expiration. Inspiration is an active process and expiration is a passive process during normal breathing. So inspiration is when the air enters the lungs from atmosphere, and when the air leaves the lungs, that is oxygen coming in is inspiration and carbon dioxide going out is expiration. So what are the parts of the respiratory tract? The parts of the respiratory tract is nasal cavity, nose and pharynx, larynx, trachea, which divides into primary bronchi or secondary and tertiary bronchi, and lungs, the lungs. Now, each lung is enclosed by a bilayer serous membrane. So each lung has two layers, that is called pleura or pleural sac. Inside this is called as pleural fluid, intrapleural fluid. So this is normal lung. And there are abdominal conditions where if air is filled, it is called as pneumothorax. If the water is filled between two pleural membranes, it is called as hydrothorax. Now coming to trachea. So this is the trachea, which is bifurcating into two main, right bronchi and left bronchi. Each of the primary bronchi enters the lung and divides into secondary bronchi. So this is the primary bronchi dividing into the secondary bronchi. And the secondary bronchi divides into tertiary bronchi. In the right lung, there are 10 tertiary bronchi, whereas in the left lung, there are 8 tertiary bronchi. And these tertiary bronchi divide into several times. That is called as bronchioles. So I'll repeat it again. The trachea bifurcates into two main branches, that is primary bronchi, which is dividing into secondary bronchi, which in turn divides into tertiary bronchi. They divide several times, giving rise to bronchioles. Now about the functions of respiratory system. So what are the functions of respiratory system is? It helps in maintaining metabolic rate. So cellular respiration, like I told you, it provides oxygen for aerobic metabolism to release energy. So in fact, like without oxygen, there won't be energy produced from the glucose. So therefore, it's helping in the metabolic rate. And respiratory system also removes excess carbon dioxide and volatile substances such as ammonia, ketone, alcohol, water vapor, etc. So it also helps in excretion. And the heat is removed from our body because of this system. So it helps in maintenance of the blood temperature. And the blood flow and the lymphatic flow is better in presence of respiratory system. And carbon dioxide, lots of carbon dioxide is expelled from the body, which is called as detoxification. So these are the functions of the respiratory system. And in the next part of the video, I'm going to cover in detail about the events and steps in respiration, what is the pathway of air, epiglottis, and I will explain why sometimes we get hiccups. How is it related to respiratory system? And I will be talking about gaseous exchange, that is from alveoli to capillaries and capillaries to cells and back. So I hope in this video you have got an outline of what is respiration, what are the types of cellular respiration, what is aerobic and anaerobic respiration, what is happening in both of them, and what is the structure of respiratory system and the functions. Please let me know in the comments below if you do not understand something or if you want me to explain any particular topic. Thank you.